So, welcome to week 2 of Plant Families in Our Foods. This is a reminder to my friends that this class, it's not to make people feel stressed out about being an expert in botany. This is about fun. This is about learning. I might identify as a botanist, but I still feel that there's a ton of things I don't know. So this class is mostly about learning how to look at plants, how to investigate them, how to figure out who are you. And that way, even if we can't figure out who our plant friends are, at least we've got some clues to start and some techniques to use. So that's what that's about today. Um, we are going to get started. I just have to share my screen. Also, a huge thank you to my amazing co-host Jasmine for co-hosting all of these classes. Big thank you to Jasmine. Um, Thank you, Jasmine. Um, Also, if folks are, I know that folks have asked me before about donations. I know that right now we're kind of all in a bit dire straits. So if folks can't donate, that's okay. If you can, though, donations are always appreciated. I think Jasmine put my link in the chat about PayPal. So folks can donate if they feel like they can, but also don't let that stand in your way. I want you here no matter what. So as a start, what we do at the beginning of each of these classes is I will give you 3 photos of different family members so that you can sketch them. Um, and also write about them. And the reason for that is to get us familiar with our own observation skills first with these before we go and start looking through and tearing apart the families. Um, so this is our first picture. Um, I will give folks 2 minutes to sketch what they can of this, and then after that, an additional 1 minute to add any words and numbers to their pictures. I recommend you can sketch small. There's no need to sketch big. You don't have to worry about making this perfect. Think of this more as a diagram and filling in details and learning that way. So I'm going to give us 2 minutes starting now. We have about 45 seconds left for the sketch. All right, that's our first 2 minutes with sketching. Now we'll add 1 extra minute. I'll give you 1 extra minute to add any words, describing words, labels, questions, um, numbers, et cetera, um, to your pictures, starting now. About 20 more seconds. All right. And there's our minute. How are we all doing so far? Doing okay? Good. All right. No stress. I know that sometimes the timing can be stressful, but it's not meant to be. Here, we're going to go for our number 2. Here is our second plant family member. And once again, we're going to take 2 minutes to sketch what we can. No pressure. It doesn't have to be perfect. And also, if this is overwhelming, then you can sketch just part of what you see here. You don't have to sketch everything about it. So 2 minutes starting now. About 30 more seconds. So there's our 2 minutes for sketching. Also want to say I loved the reading some of the it reminds me ofs in the chat. Um, so now we have 1 more minute to add any words, describing words, questions, it reminds me ofs. Let's see here, numbers, anything like that to our pictures, starting now. About 15 more seconds. And there is our minute. I also love people writing what they love about the plants too. Bethany writes that she loves the delicate veins in the petals. Before we go on to answer your question from last week, there are indeed veins and petals. They just seem to be wider spaced apart than they usually are in leaves. Alrighty. Are we ready for number 3? Here we go. One more. So once again, we will take 2 minutes to sketch. This will be our third friend, and then we will meet our family officially. Once again, 2 minutes to sketch what you can. Starting now. Thank you. One more minute. All right, that is our 2 minutes for sketching. And now we have 1 more minute to add any words, describing words, it reminds me of, questions, um, things that you notice, and numbers to our pictures. And more second. And there's our minute. How's everybody doing? Everybody doing all right? That's good.
A little fast.
A little fast. Sorry about
Yeah,
that.
that's okay.
That
Getting
case,
us to try to think quickly.
no worries. I'm going to give folks a chance to just gently stretch out their hands, wiggle your fingers if it doesn't hurt too much. Roll your shoulders, stretch. Thank you. So those are our our rather, three examples. Are you all ready to meet our family? Here we go. Welcome to the mustard family. This is indeed our mustard family, also known as Brassicaceae. To note for folks, sometimes you'll catch me saying things like either Brassicaceae or Brassicaceae. Same thing, just different pronunciations. My professors used to pronounce it Brassicaceae, but I used to say Brassicaceae instead, and I've heard different botanists say different things. So same thing, just different pronunciation. So this is our Brassicaceae, and it's named for the type genus Brassica, which happens to be the Latin name for cabbage, which I hadn't known at first. So sometimes this can be called the cabbage family or the radish family too. It's got different names, but we know it mostly as the mustard family. There's also an old name. You'll find that some of our families that we're going to learn have old names too. And the old name for this one was cruciferae or cruciferae. And if you speak a Romance language, then the name might be a bit significant for you because think like crucifix, like a cross, or cruz. And so the reason for that is that we have our four petals. We always have four petals on any member of this family, and they're often formed in the shape of a cross. But we'll get more into that in a moment. um, any guesses as to what this one right here on screen is? And folks can unmute and call out. And I should also say that I have a hard time telling some of these apart myself. I had to actually look and see where I'd taken the photo in order for me to know which one this was. It's okay.
Broccoli?
It looks,
Broccoli?
that's initially what I thought it was too. When I saw my
Yeah.
picture, I was like, oh, it's broccoli. But the weird thing is that I took it at Fort Point. So that makes this wild mustard, which is just weird.
I say you can sort of see that the stem is long and thin, and
Hmm.
you've got it looks like I can almost see like little seed capsules coming up the sides, so it's tall and narrow, unlike broccoli. So yeah, yeah.
But
It's
but
it's a weed here, and but my kids love to pick it and eat it, which I'm always a little worried about pesticides, but they do like to do that.
Yep. It is one of the plants that we have to unfortunately pull out in the Presidio. Not because we don't like the plant, but more because the plant sometimes kind of takes over. At least this one does.
But you
Um,
can have a nice snack at least.
exactly. At least we have a good snack. So yeah, initially I thought that this one, like when I first saw it in my photos, I thought that it was broccoli as well because of the color of the petals. But it turns out that this is wild mustard. And contrary to popular belief, it's not actually the same as the usual mustard genus. This is Hirschfeldia in Kana of all of the weird names. Hirschfeldia.
For
But
Hirschfeld, I guess.
yep, but wild mustard will do. So that's what this one is. Um, and then this one I'm not entirely sure of. I will just say that right off the bat. Because of where it was taken, I think this is broccoli, but the color of the petals looks all wrong. So I'm not totally sure what this one is.
I feel like the color of the petals is so variable between the camera adjusting the colors and just like different plants of the same species might grow different colors based on like how much sunlight and what nutrients are in the soil and stuff. I don't know that we can tell from that.
Exactly.
But yeah, if we could see a bigger picture of the plant and see the sort of the growth habit, that might help. But
Definitely. Um, all I know is that I took this one in a flurry of photo taking inside of the Dearborn Community Garden. So it's one of those garden plants. I just don't know which one, and I apologize for that. Oh, here, I'm going to try to look at the chat as well. If I miss people's comments in the chat, I apologize. But I'm going to try my best to look. Oh, cool. Seeing some very cool things. Yeah, maybe this one may or may not be edible. So that is a good call. This may not be edible. Luckily, it's just in the picture, but like, yeah, just even within Brassicaceae, you have to be careful of what you eat. So that is a good reminder. Um, this one, anybody know this one?
is that your wild radish? Although it's
Yes, it
not
is.
pink.
Yep, this is
Aha.
wild radish.
Wild
And
radish.
The
yep,
veins reminded me.
and wild radish will have a whole bunch of different colors. Sometimes they'll be more white like this one, other times they'll be more pink. And yes, these do have really lovely, delicate veins. The only ones I know in this family who have more dramatic veins are the arugula. Arugula have super duper dramatic veins. Um, but yeah, and so this one may or may not be Raphanus sativa. Usually the ones we grow in the garden are Raphanus sativa, but there's some debate whether this is Raphanus sativa or Raphanus raffinostrum. And I personally haven't gotten a chance to sit down and key them out, but this is definitely wild radish of some kind. And then
It's
we have,
interesting that you noted the color variation of the petals. Do you notice in a particular patch, do you tend to see like plants with different colors on the petals, on the flowers? Or is it
some
like in this patch they're all white and over this other area they're pink? I'm just curious.
see, I've been trying to, I haven't really had time to sit down and trace back the individual flowers to their plants, but I will see patches with white and pink mixed together.
Okay.
And
I
I
was
can never
curious.
tell. Mm?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I can never tell whether it's all of the branches tangled together or
Ah,
whether it's that individual plants will have different colors. So that is a good question.
uh-huh.
What were you gonna say,
Well,
Susan?
Well, I was curious because out here we have a weed that's a bit invasive, which is Dame's rocket, which is rocket is also in this family, which can be very dramatically purple or white, like very nice purple or very bright white, or kind of mixed in between, and sometimes a little bit pink. And I think the individual plants are all of one color, I'm fairly certain, but they tend to grow in clumps, and the clumps are very mixed in color, so it makes for a very pretty look. But I'm curious because presumably, if there's a whole clump of plants, they're probably all closely related, and yet they all have different colors. So that's just kind of cool. So I was curious if the same thing was happening with the radishes, but it sounds like you do see mixes of colors in the same area, so that might be the same kind of thing.
Definitely. And I
Mhm.
wonder about that too. There's just
Mhm.
some very interesting, like just some interesting things that you notice about this family in terms of variations in that, and then how quickly they'll come up in disturbed areas. And I don't know, I've got so many questions about this family still. So I love that you're noticing those patterns too. Anybody know this one? This one's a bit more special, and either you probably have seen it on the beaches, or I think it might be from Europe. So folks in Europe might know this plant. I'm not sure. But does anybody know this plant?
Sea rocket?
Yes, yes, it is. It is sea rocket. Very nice. Chloe, you said that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, this is sea rocket. It's got a fun name too. I don't know how to pronounce it. Kakile marittima, possibly. But I can actually just type it into the chat. Kakile marittima. Oh, and then my computer is trying to respell it differently. Okay. Um, oh, come on. Okay, if it gives something a random uh, accent point, then that's the computer. Not that there's anything wrong with accent points. I love accent points. Anyways, Kakile marittima, sea rocket. So those are our family members. Ready to go on to looking a bit inside of our flowers. So this is going to be fun. Um, as mentioned, a lot of these will come up in kind of a so-called weedy formation. So one of the best times you're going to be noticing this is when you've got disturbed soils. And you'll see these guys coming up and being some of our first plants to arrive on the scene, which is great. They can help stabilize things. And we'll get more into that a bit later. But here is the anatomy of our flower. Here is I always start off with our basic flower diagram, and I keep telling myself I'm going to redraw this someday, and then I never do, because the pistil here is way too big. It's exaggerated. But this is something like this is what we'll be seeing in a plant book, generally speaking. This is our basic flower diagram to show us the parts. So we've got our stem, like usual. We've got our sepals. Those are the leafy-like appendages at on the outermost part of the flower parts. Um, some families will have them, some will not. I think this family does. So we have our sepals. We've got our petals next. Usually when we think of flowers, we think of petals, oftentimes very showy, not always though. Um, and then our next part, as we're moving inwards, are our stamens. They are thread-like appendages that have all of the pollen on them. And then at the innermost part, we have our vase-like pistil here, which creates the seeds inside. And as mentioned, they're not usually this huge. Someday I will have to redraw this diagram. And so when we think about flower making business and we think about pollen and seeds, then it can get, I sometimes would get myself a bit confused with which parts are producing which things. I remember that with PSSP. Pistils make seeds, stamens make pollen. So that's PSSP. That's our basic flower diagram. And I won't immediately go away from the slide. I'm just going to bring up part 2 of the slide really fast. And that's what our family is doing. I like to compare it to the standard diagram just so we can see where the variations are. So with our mustard family, we still have our stem. We've got our 4 sepals. Oh yeah, that's important to note how many sepals. This family will have 4 sepals. A lot of times the sepals will be kind of tucked straight up. I think of it sort of like when you're I never know the vocabulary, but when you're wearing a nice suit and then you've got part of the suit that goes up here before you flatten out your collar and the collar comes flopping down. So it's sort of like this is the part of the suit that is holding it, that is holding things up before the collar kind of goes down. So we have our 4 sepals. We have our 4 petals. And the 4 petals will be in the shape of a cross. Now, this doesn't always mean looking like an X. Sometimes the cross will be sort of a weird H shape to it. Usually when we've got thicker petals, it'll look more like an H than like an X. When you've got the petals with the more strappy bits to them, then that will look more like an X. But the important thing is 4. Then we have 6 stamens, not 4 like you'd expect, but 6. 4 of them are tall stamens, and you'll see them kind of poke up and around the pistil in the middle here. But then 2 of them are shorter and will be notched into a particular area. We're going to actually go back a couple slides in a moment, and I'm going to point this out in a bit more detail. But we've got 6 stamens, 2 short and 4 tall. And then last but not least, we've got our pistil here in the middle. 1 long, slender pistil. If we were to cut it in half, it would make 2 halves. And sorry, and that sounds kind of self-explanatory, but it's because when this grows into a fruit, then when it's ready to open up and disperse seeds, it splits in halves, and there's a thin membrane in the middle of it. And so then the seeds kind of come out from both sides. Depending on what member of the family we're talking about, it's got a special name. You don't have to remember the special name, but the fruit is called either a silicle or a silique, depending on how thick and thin it is. Again, those are specialized vocabulary. You don't have to know what those are, but in case you do like knowing these things, I will write them down into the chat. Silicle and silique, just for folks who might be interested. I think that the silique is the one that's more narrow, and silicle is the one that's a bit stouter. So those are our ones. I'm going to give folks another moment to sketch this because I know that I don't want folks to have to rush too much. But while I'm giving folks another moment, are there any questions so far?
Yes, what was the yellow one again from the picture?
Oh, was it sketch number 3 or?
Yes, yes.
Okay, that one I wasn't totally sure about. I think it might be a broccoli, but the color's a bit off. All I know is that I took a photo of it somewhere in the garden during a day of mad photo taking. So I apologize, I don't know quite.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, that's all right.
But yeah, that's one of the ones from the garden. But yeah, actually, we're going to go back to that one in a moment because that one has a really, those have some good photos that illustrate the inner parts. But I'm going to give folks another moment to sketch the diagram here. How are folks doing so far? Doing okay? All right, that's good. Yeah. Let's see here.
I see
Yes.
Rebecca has a question about the silicle and
Oh.
silique and what they are again.
Absolutely. So the silicle and silique are are the fruit. So when the pistil matures, then it becomes either a silicle or a silique. It's a special name for the fruits of this family. What it means is it's a pod-like fruit that has a very thin membrane splitting it in halves on the inside. And so when it opens, then that thin membrane will be exposed. And the difference between them is that a silicle, I can't remember what the formula is, but it's something like height compared to width and how many times one is of the other. But the silicle is the one that's a bit stouter, and the silique is the one that's a bit longer and thinner, I think. But yeah, silicle and silique are specialized names for the fruits. And thank you for that question. Any other questions? And I don't mind. There's a lot of information, so I'm always happy to repeat. I've got no problem with that. Any other questions?
Just reminds me like when I don't know, is arugula in this family?
It is.
Oh, okay, because sometimes when we leave it and it overgrows a bit, then you get these like long things on them and they're not really edible or anything. And
Yep.
so, yeah, it's
Yep,
interesting to
exactly.
think about. Is that how the plant reproduces again then with the fruit?
Yep. Those long silicles or siliques are indeed their fruits, and they have little tiny seeds in them. I don't know if this is always the case, but usually I notice that the seeds of this family are just very round and tiny. Um, Different seeds in different families will look different, but almost every seed I see from this family is round, very round and tiny, which is kind of interesting. Um, Another thing about it is that the silicle or the silique, the fruits, will oftentimes form a spiral staircase look when they're going up the stem. Same with the flowers. The flowers will look kind of, at first they start off looking like kind of bunched up, but if you look lower on the plant where the flowers began, then it will look sort of like a spiral staircase winding up the stalk of the plant, which is kind of interesting. And here I will, oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Rachel. Yep. Rachel just put a really great photo in the chat of silicle versus silique. And indeed the silique is the long one. And I love the way that the silique and silicle both show the membrane on the inside of the plant. That's lovely. Here, we're gonna go back a little bit in our slides. So I can show you, this one's okay, but I'm gonna show this one. Oh wait, this is weird. Oh wait, no, it's not. Okay, I'm not sure what's up with this one. Maybe some part fell off, but this is a much better example. Can everybody see my mouse? So with this flower here, I just wanted to point out, so we've got our 4 petals. Our sepals are under here. We just can't see them. And then right here in the middle is our pistil. But this is the part I wanted to look at, are the stamens here. So we've got tall, 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 tall right here. You'll see that tall, 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 and tall. And then stamen right here, that's kind of tucked into where these flowers are, where the petals are kind of overlapping. So we have one stamen here and then one on the other side. Those are our short stamens. And that's usually the pattern you're going to see, is that the tall ones are going to be kind of more in the middle and more centralized, and the two short ones are going to be tucked at opposite ends, kind of close by to where the petals overlap, if that's helpful to folks to know that. And then as you can see, this one is cross-shaped, but it looks more like an H than like an X, the petals here. So I wanted to show that so that people can see that distinction a bit better. Whereas with this one looks a bit more like an X than like an H, because I find that the petals where they connect are a little bit strappier than here, whereas here it's a bit thicker. So, and then with here, it's a bit harder to see, but you can see that the 4 stamens are kind of bunched up in here, the tall ones, and then the short ones are kind of tucked into the sides, if that's helpful to see. So now we'll go on. And then this is, I like to put out the list of characteristics just so people can see them, but you don't have to write all of this down. You can just kind of add to whatever notes you don't already have, because I think folks probably have most of this, but you can just add a little bit, but you don't have to write the list. So it's just a reminder that our key characteristics are 4 sepals, 4 petals arranged like a cross or like an H, our 6 stamens, 4 long and 2 short, our 1 pistil, And as mentioned, they mature into a fruit that's called either a silicle or silique. Either way, a long pod with a membrane. The flowers and fruits will go radially up the stalk like a spiral staircase. You don't have to remember the special name. For folks who like the special name, that's called a raceme. And the reason why I'm adding this is because I know in the past some folks have wanted to know the names, have wanted to know the botanical vocabulary, but I deliberately want to make this a class where you don't have to know it. You just have to know how the plant works. That's more important than knowing what it's called. But I want to include this for folks who are curious. A thing about this is that they are often annual or biennial. What that means is that you'll have a plant that lives for 1 year if annual or 2 years if biennial before it disperses seeds and then dies back. And then a lot of times will come back again the next year with the seeds. Although some of them, sometimes you'll get some plants that have this weird thing where they last longer than the biennial. And I'm not totally sure what that's all about. It's just that the most common patterns you see in this family are annual and biennial. And this is a plant, or a family, I should say, that loves disturbed soils. So you usually find them growing in disturbed soils. And the most important thing is always to let the plant that's in front of you tell you. And let's see here. I just want to see if I've got any questions or ideas in the chat. Oh, I'm seeing folks having some really great ideas. Also, so you know, I go back and I read the chats after class, so that even if I don't get to see everything during class, and I apologize, I always go back to hear what people were excited about. So are there any questions right here before we go on? I can also give folks another moment to write things down. Yeah, I'll give folks one more moment to write things down. Oh, I see. Let's see here. Oh, I like that idea about coming and seeing what pollinators visit any of the brassica. I have to do the same thing, honestly. I have to see. I'm curious to know what pollinators folks have seen visiting, but we can, yes, and yes, this is an important plant family for primary succession, exactly. This would be one of the earlier soil pioneers, as they say, or soil colonizer, different vocabulary, but yeah, this is an important plant for primary succession. We actually can sometimes use that. I don't know if this is still the practice, but at least a practice that used to happen in organic garden farming that might still happen is when folks are trying to grow strawberries, they need to make sure that there aren't too many nematodes in the soil, which would cause problems with the strawberry growth. And if they're trying to find a chemical-free way of treating the soil before growing the strawberries, sometimes you'll have certain organic farmers that will grow a crop of mustard grains maybe, or something similar, because of the mustard gases that they release. So they'll grow those. They'll let that treat the nematodes a bit, and then right afterwards they'll plant strawberries. I don't know if that's still a practice, but it's one I heard about back when I was still in college. So I'm curious to know if they still do that. And I think that's a really good question about that name, cruciferae. And yeah, I think that's a wonderful question. All right, we're going to go on to our next. Oh yes, go ahead, Jared.
We live in the Black Dirt region of the Hudson Valley, and they actually use alfalfa to do the same thing. So you'll see alfalfa field where there used to be onions, wherever it is, for that year to better stabilize the soil or to better add nutrients back into.
Very cool. It is really, that's good to know that the alfalfa will help stabilize the soils after the onions. Like, that's one of the cool things about crop successions and about doing crop rotations, is that you get all sorts of really neat benefits from one plant that then carry over to the next ones that you grow. So that is really cool to know that that's where y'all do that. Like over there with the alfalfa helping after the onions. All right, I'm going to go on to the next slide, especially because, sorry about that, I always go over time. So I'm going to try really hard to get better at my timekeeping. So just wanted to look inside so that we can see our pistil a little bit better. So this would qualify, for folks who are wondering, this would qualify as being a superior ovary. Again, not to say that this plant's better than all other plants, just simply saying that the ovary connects above where the sepals and petals connect, even though they connect way down here. So this is our ovary right in here. This is where the seeds would be made. So you can imagine this expanding and growing, and that this part will become the silicle or the silique, in this case, a silique. So the seeds will be growing up in here, and there'll be a nice thin membrane, and this will be growing out. And then here you can see two of the taller stamens, and then two of the shorter ones on the side. I think this is a broccoli flower. So I know for a fact that this one's a broccoli flower, just because I remember when I dissected it. And then you can see our sepals here that kind of just hang on the sides and act sort of like that suit before you pop the collar out. So that's what the inside looks like. So here's the part where people get to call out answers. I know we've already got a ton of them, but what foods are in Brassicaceae? I'd love to hear.
Kale.
Kale, yep. What else?
Mustard.
Mustard, yes.
Broccoli.
Broccoli, yes.
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts, indeed. Oh, yummy Brussels sprouts. Now I want some. What else? What else?
Kohlrabi.
I heard cabbage, and what was the other one? Sorry, Rebecca.
Kohlrabi.
Kohlrabi, yes.
Yeah.
Cauliflower.
Cauliflower, yes. Ready to see?
Is
Did we say
chard in this
broccoli?
family?
Oh, I heard two questions. For one about chard. Chard's not in this family, although I understand why you'd think that.
I was
But
confused chard and kale.
we will meet chard in series 2. And what was the other question? Sorry.
Oh, I just said, did we say broccoli already? I can't remember. It's
But
early.
we can say broccoli as many times as we like. I love broccoli.
Yes, broccoli.
Oh, radishes.
Yep, radishes, definitely.
Yes.
Arugula.
And arugula. Here we go.
Turnips also? Oh, there you go.
Turnips.
All right.
Yep, yep.
Yeah,
We
I
do have
got turnips.
Yep, we've got kale and broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, Brussels sprouts, collard greens, and kohlrabi and gailan, and mustard, radish, turnip, horseradish, wasabi, bok choy, tatsoi, canola, arugula, broccolini, and rutabaga. You might notice a lot of the leafy greens that we're encouraged to eat are on this list. There are some, though, that you will notice are not on this list. The chard was one of the ones that are not on this list. You might also notice very conspicuously that lettuce is missing. That's because lettuce is not in this family. We're going to meet lettuce later. But yeah, we've got a lovely long list of brassicaceous friends, or cruciferous friends. Yeah, there's no spinach either. Sorry about that. Canola, I admit that I've never actually seen the plant canola, but I use canola oil pretty regularly, and I found out that canola, the plant, is from this family as well. So canola oil is, interestingly enough. Yeah, I'm not entirely, at least I think that that's the case. I think the canola's in this family, but I really need to actually see the plant sometime. So yeah. But yeah, I used to think that canola was corn as well. I could be wrong about this. If anybody finds out otherwise, then please do let me know. One thing also is, don't be afraid to let me know if you've learned things that are different than what I'm sharing. I'm always learning things, and I do make mistakes. So I'm always happy to learn more. So here's our lovely list. Ooh, okay, yeah, I need to check out canola flowers sometime. All right, any questions on here? And then whenever folks are ready, then we can go on to the last part of our class, which I know is the part that people really either enjoy or really don't. but I'm hoping folks will enjoy. Any questions before we go on?
Well, I just have an observation and thinking about it, is that a lot of plants in this family, like the mustards and things, have that very kind of spicy flavor, and I'm noticing that the horseradish and wasabi are in there as well, and radishes and things, and arugula is very spicy. And a lot of the like kind of weeds, like garlic mustard, has a nice garlicky flavor when it's young, but also kind of spicy. So I'm observing that, of course, Caterpillar Lab shirt, I have to speak for the caterpillars, our lovely Pyrrhus, Kim will have to add the genus, the species name, because I can't remember which one, but the cabbage white butterflies feed on members of this family. especially the ones the ones that are cultivars of the same species there. But they'll feed on a lot of those, and a lot of other white butterflies also feed on brassicas. Um, so there's quite a few native species as well. But they also feed on nasturtium,
Hmm.
which is not in this family, but is also very spicy and has a similar kind of flavor. So I'm curious if there's like a particular compound that this family produces that nasturtium also produces that has that spicy flavor, and that's like I wonder if it's the same plant compound that makes that flavor. I
You
don't
know,
know, but it's interesting. It just sort of like it's interesting that they taste similar, and apparently they taste similar enough for the white butterfly caterpillars to also feed on them. So I'm just curious.
that is interesting. And and as for your observation about the nasturtium, specifically, so folks know we're talking about the nasturtium, also known as tropiolum. Because there's another nasturtium that's not the same as the orange flowers.
Oh,
It's another word for, gosh darn it, now I can't remember which name this is. Um, hold on a minute. I actually just like had it right here. Watercress. There we go. For some reason, I didn't put watercress on this list. I'm
so
silly.
oh, so is that version actually in this family?
So watercress is in Brassicaceae, and
Ah,
to be
interesting.
confusing, that one's scientific name is nasturtium. But then there's the nasturtium where that's the common name, and then the scientific name is tropiolum. The nasturtium are the one with the big orange flowers that we often see. Now, thing about that one, and I think and that's the one Susan's talking about.
Yeah, I
It
didn't
may
realize
not
there was
be.
another one in this family. I
It may
wonder if
not
they're called similar because they have that similar taste and sort of are they I guess they have some similar qualities. But go
They
ahead. Sorry.
do. They're actually cousins. It's in a related family, the Tripolaceae, if last I recall, unless they changed it up. But both of them are in the order Brassicales, so the
Ah.
same order. So that means that if we're going one step back in terms of classification, um, at in high school or whatever school, we're taught usually about kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species in terms of the orders of classification going from biggest to smallest. And so one step removed from family is order. And in the order that they're both in is Brassicales. And so Tropiolum is very closely related to members of this family. Yep. So I'm guessing, Susan, that they probably do have either similar, if not the same kind of compounds.
Oh yeah. Well now I'm gonna have to investigate and see whether our other white butterflies will also eat other members of that other family. And how deep does how broad does it go? How deep does the Brassicales conspiracy go here as far as like munching on things? I don't know. We'll find out.
I love that. How deep does the I love
Or how
that.
broad, I guess, because it's not very deep, it's broad.
This is true. Oh, actually, that reminds me of something. You all might notice that the list appears lopsided. I didn't do that for style points. This part of the list is special over here, the left part of the list. And that's because they are all, in fact, the same species. They are all Brassica oleracea, just different cultivars or varieties of the same species. So that entire list over here, this is all one species. I just wanted to add that in for funsies. I can't remember which each of the varieties are called. They've all got specialized variety or cultivar, I should say, cultivar names, depending on what part was selected for. See, they might be the same species, but we selected for different traits to emphasize the different parts that we eat. So, for example, if they all started out, let's just pretend that they all started out as cabbage. I'm not totally sure if this is the one they started out as. Um, they might have selected certain kinds of cabbage that had maybe bigger unopened flowers. And from there, they get the broccoli, because broccoli is selected more so that we're eating the unopened buds. Um, on the other hand, maybe they wanted a part where we eat the neck a little bit more of the plant, or the stem, we should say. It's properly called the stem. Maybe that gives us kohlrabi because it's got this lovely bulge that we like to eat. So these might all be the same species, but we select for certain members that have the parts we like. And then in doing that, we make different cultivars that we like to eat. So I just thought that might be kind of interesting for folks to know. Um, yeah. Oh, I like this. Do you know the mighty redwood is actually the same species as broccoli and kale? It's just a different cultivar. Every year or two, botanists add another plant to Brassica or Lauracea and see if anyone calls them on it. Yeah, that is very true. But yeah, just in case people find that interesting. And then there's other members of this family that are the same species that are also different cultivars, but this is the biggest cluster I can remember. It gets complicated after a while. And I admit that the different cultivars are not my area of expertise, but yeah, but this is kale. This people know already. Sorry. Okay, ready for spot the plant family member? Okay, here we go. Here is our round one. And to remind folks, this is just for funsies. This is just for practice. This doesn't have to be like, we don't have to know the right answer necessarily. This is just practice and seeing the plants. And so instead of worrying about the right answer, question, what sets each of these apart from each other? What makes one way and the other way? And it's hard sometimes to have the right words or vocabulary for it. So yeah, and I'll give folks some time to answer. And these are anonymous too, so I can't see what people answer. So don't be afraid to guess. I'm loving all of the questions in the chat. I'm looking forward to reading this later. Okay, I think almost everybody has answered. I'll give folks a couple more seconds if they'd like to add their answer. And if not, that's okay too. And as mentioned, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. It says spot the Rosaceae. You're right. Sorry. This is supposed to say spot the Brassicaceae. I apologize. I was not paying enough attention. Yeah, ignore what this says up here. It's not spot the Rosaceae. It's spot the Brassicaceae. Silly person. Okay, here we go. Ready? All right. Here is our answer. And I apologize. I apologize for putting in the wrong family member. Either way, there's no worries. So, out of curiosity, what told people that C was the Brassicaceae?
It has 4 petals.
Yep, we got our 4 petals.
That's the signature thing I saw.
So A also has 4 petals, and I'm familiar with some native Brassicaceae that have those like 2 lobed petals like that, so I was not fooled into thinking that it had 8 petals. But the 4 stamens that I can see on A are all equally spaced, and I don't see room for the 2 sneaky short stamens on A. Whereas with C, I can't see the short stamens, but I can see there's a space where they could be.
Yep, here and here. So yep, we did leave space for the short stamens. I like that, the sneaky short stamens. Whereas here, as Susan is saying, that they are all equally spaced, sort of more or less in each corner where the petals meet with this one. And Susan's also correct that this is indeed only 4 petals. They're just very deeply lobed. This is from this one lovely family called the Onagraceae, or the
primrose.
Yeah, the evening primrose family, which is different than normal primrose, but yeah, the evening primrose family. So what told people that this one was not our Brassicaceae?
The hair on it, or if you can call it hair, I don't know what you call it.
Yep, it's got the lovely fuzzies. Yeah. And then what else? Anything else?
The 5 petals.
Yes, 5 petals. That's an automatic disqualifier.
Yeah. And the stamens seem to be coming from like the sort of up high, like attached to the petals, as opposed to going all the way deep down into the base of it. I mean, I can't really tell, but the stamens just aren't arranged right.
Exactly. Yep, that's exactly right. This one is Myoporum latum from the Scrophulariaceae family. I think it's also known as Ngao. I'm not sure how to say it. And so it's from a completely different family. And yep, about the pistil seeming a lot thicker too on this one. It's, yeah. Cool. Ready for round 2? Here we go. And I'm sorry to be mean, this one's kind of hard, deliberately. and I apologize. Again, there's no necessarily like, so it's not so much about getting the right answer. It's just more about learning how we analyze these flowers and what we look for. So it's just more about learning. Think of this as learning more than having to get the right answer. Especially because I'm pretty sure that one of these got mentioned in the chat earlier. All right, I'll give folks just another couple seconds. I think almost everybody's answered. And it's also okay if you don't want to answer. Still learning, we'll still be learning. All right, everybody ready? Ready to hear the answer? Here we go. A 1, a 2, and a 1, 2. Ah, come back here. Why aren't you? Okay, there we go. B. Sorry. Yeah, this one was tricky on purpose. So I put A in there to be mean, and I'm sorry about that. Very sorry about that indeed. What tells folks that A is not our Brassicaceae, even though one of them only had 4 petals?
That long pistil with the sort of multiple little thingies, tendrils coming off the top.
So I'm hearing long pistil, and
Pistil
then
should be like flush with the sort of the where the petals split.
Okay, so pistil should be more flush down here. And then Linda, I saw you had an
They
answer.
have a curly thing going on.
Yep, lots of curls here. And then Robin, I saw you had an answer too.
I said the nectar guides. They're pretty pronounced.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
I love that you noticed the nectar guides. So yep, exactly all 3 of you said. Did I miss anybody else's answer? I want to make sure I didn't miss anybody. But yeah, exactly. We've got this lovely and weird style coming out with this 5-part stigma here. It almost looks like a super duper curly cued sea star, which is accurate. This is a 5-part stigma. And the nectar guides are super duper pronounced. Now this one, for some reason, only has got 4 petals, but if you look at the one next door, it's got 5. This is pelargonium. We were talking about this one earlier. So this is indeed the pelargonium that we were mentioning earlier in the chat. And so the nectar guides tell us it's not. So does the style and the stigma. So what tells us that C is not the right one?
Again, it's got a sticky outy pistil that just sticks out too far.
It is very sticky outy. And also, I forgot to mention,
I'm not shaming the plant. It's okay for it to stick out too far. It's just not right for this family. And also, that actually reminds me of a characteristic I forgot to mention about this family. But before I do, yep, we're not seeing. Yep, I'm seeing that comment. We're not seeing any stamens in here, or at least the stamens are not picking out and doing the thing where they are conspicuous. What else? Oh, outer versus innie pistils. I like that. Outy versus innie. Yep, sticky outy. I like that too. What else? What else are we noticing that's different?
No raceme.
No raceme. That's right. We're not seeing a spiral staircase of flowers. That nice one. And so last but not least, what tells us that the sweet alyssum is in fact our family member? If you just sort of stretch the petals out, it would be exactly the same shape as like one of the ones we've been looking at. Like the petals are just sort of much shorter than they should be, but the shortness of the petals isn't like anything that's so variable across families. Exactly. This is one of those ones we'd say makes an H shape instead of an X. I think if you look at the space inside the petals, there's a sort of an eyeball shape. Yep. Where the 6 stamens, you have like the 2 short stamens are like off when they make the sides of the eyeball. Yep. And then 4 in the middle, and then you have the pistil in the center. And that, I think that sort of space in between the stamens is pretty characteristic, I think, for all the members of this family. You can have that kind of shape. Yep. And again, I absolutely. Where the pistils kind of flush with place where the petals sort of bend out. Exactly. Yep. Yep. They seem to be right. This one sticks out slightly, but not quite like, definitely not like this one. And they seem to all be, at least with the 4, at about the same height. and around the stamen. So yep, exactly. Noticing sort of their proportion to each other and where they level off, all of that. Those are all really good ways of examining. Also, if you look at the flower clusters in the middle, they might remind you a little bit of broccoli. A lot of the buds look like this. Will have that kind of closed look to it, the unopened buds. And so again, when we're eating the broccoli, we're eating the unopened buds, which is another thing. Another thing to notice is that this isn't always the case, but with a lot of members of this family of Brassicaceae, the pistil, the stigma on the very top of the pistil will oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes have what is called a capitate shape. It looks like there's a little ball on the end. Not always. Sometimes it'll be flat, but that little ball is also very characteristic, or can be. Yep. Oh yeah, that's a good question. What a head of broccoli looks like when you let it flower. It's really wild and really beautiful. I will say that. Wonderful. And so are you folks ready for round 3? Or any other questions? Oh, okay, yeah, we're actually 5 over. So yeah, here we go. Last round. And again, this is just practice. I'll give folks about 5 more seconds. So far, it's unanimous, if that helps folks to know. All right. We'll stop there. And our family member is the wallflower. Everybody guessed right.
Wallflower. Wow.
Yep. This is an ornamental wallflower. What told people that our wallflower or our bee was our family member?
The buds are, what did we call it? A staircase shape?
Oh yes, the spiral staircase. Yep. Yep, exactly. On the sides. What else?
The 4 petals and the arrangement of the stamens.
Yep. Yep. You can see we've got, yep. And then like Susan was noting, that eye shape to them. Yep, exactly. The 4 petals and the stamens inside. What else?
I've drawn the wild one in my perpetual journal.
Oh, that's awesome. So this is an old friend to you when you see it. I love that. What else are people noticing? Anything else? I can also say that this is a very characteristic silique. So you can sort of see the seam here on the side if you look carefully. And that would be where when this plant, when the fruit here splits open, then you'd have that thin membrane right here. So that is the silique.
Here's a phrase I learned: explosive dehiscence.
Explosive
dehiscence. Dehiscence is when a plant like has a portion that's like meant to break. So like like it's to have like leaves that open, they break, and like seed capsules break open. And explosive dehiscence is when they explode and break open. And I have read that some brassicas do that. I wonder if these ones do. Like that's how they scatter their seeds so wildly.
There's a plant that I was looking for in my photo collection that I couldn't find a picture of. It's this one plant that is called, I want to say it's called bittercress or something to that effect. I call it popcorn seed because when you touch it, it does rather violently explode, and its seeds go everywhere.
Nice.
I like to call it popcorn plant or popcorn seed. So yes, absolutely. That is definitely a feature of this plant. I love that explosive dehiscence. What about
garlic mustard is supposed to do that, but I haven't seen it happen. Sorry, go ahead.
I'm getting a sudden call from a family member, but while I am answering, I'm going to be listening to you. What tells you that this one is not the one? What tells you that C is not the one?
looks like a tree or a shrub.
Right.
But I knew that A was borage, so I was like, okay, this helps me make my
Yeah.
decision really fast.
Interesting
Right,
question.
yeah.
Because are there any members of the Brassicaceae that do form like woody shrubs and
Yeah.
trees?
Yeah, are
So
there
I
any?
was asking about that last week, I think. Like a lot of the Rosaceae do form, trees or woody shrubs, but then there are other families that we don't ever seem. I mean, there are definitely members of this family that will form a very hard stem, but I think it's still herbaceous. It doesn't actually continue to grow year after year. I think C might be like a pear or something like that. No, wait, no, not pear, but I think it's in there. I think it's in Rosaceae. I think it has a hypedium,
And yes, indeed, C is indeed in Rosaceae.
but not a
Hey.
pear.
And as Rachel also noticed, it's woody. This is one of those ones where the stamens don't match the whole like fuzzy center pattern. This is a special plant that grows near where I live, and it's called osoberry.
Oh, so berry. I'll look that up.
Oh, so very, very good.
Also very, very good. Plus also
Can
a
you read it?
bear, so that
Aha.
makes it even more fun.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
a good point. I hadn't even thought about the non-fuzzy center, but
this is also,
is it a hypanthium there?
yep, looks like it.
Yay.
Yeah, this is also berry, so it is in fact rosaceous, and you can tell by the very delicate five petals, um, which will definitely fall off at some point. So I'm not sure which branch of Rosaceae this dwells within, but this is definitely.
Oh,
And then like
sorry.
Rachel was saying, oh, sorry, good.
On C, that one flower that's near the stem, it's above the cluster that we're seeing most prominently.
This
Is
one.
that a flower where the petals have fallen off and we're only seeing the sepals?
Ooh, good question.
I
I'm
can't
not.
quite tell, but it looks like it might have lost the petals.
I think we have some petals still on this, but maybe not as many. And
But
so
the
maybe
prominent
actually
things
no,
are
maybe
the
you're right.
sepals.
Maybe they did fall off. Huh, that's hard to tell too.
Hmm.
Not sure. It looks like if they
Yeah,
haven't fallen off yet, they're in the process for sure.
interesting.
But that's a good question because you're right. It is kind of hard to tell because the sepals are so big on this one. So yeah, that's a very good question.
So, by the way, I read that of the Brassicaceae oleracea, or Brassica oleracea, the one species that produces all these ones, that there is a cultivar that you can make like walking sticks out of. That they
Ooh.
don't grow for food, but
Ooh.
it produces a very like stiff, straight stem
Mhm.
that you can like get rid of all the leaves and all the side shoots and things, and basically make a walking stick out of it. And that's what they
Oh,
do use it for, apparently.
That's
So
cool.
again, like I
that
don't
is
think it's a woody plant. I'm not sure. But like it apparently makes like a very good solid stem that you can, yeah. So that's what they grow
very,
it for, apparently, for canes and things.
that's pretty cool. I'd love to know more about that plant and which one it winds up being. I will have to look into that. That's really good. Thank you for telling us about it. And then I also quickly wanted to acknowledge A. Rachel, like you said, this is borage. We might be able to tell that this isn't our Brassicaceae because it's hard to count with the fuzz kind of everywhere, but this does indeed have 5 parts, like a sea star. So the 5 parts are immediately disqualifying. Plus, then it has kind of the weird fun stuff going on in the center. But yeah, bees love borage. Exactly right, Rebecca. So that's our round 3. Sorry, I took us a little over time again. I should really rethink how long this class takes. That's okay. So once again, just our recap. We've got our 4 sepals here. We've got our 4 petals that can form either an X or an H shape. We've got our 6 stamens, 4 long and 2 short, and making what Susan describes as being sort of like an I shape in the middle. And that I love that description. It's really true. With the 2 short ones being at the edges of like at the outer points of the oval. We've got 1 pistil that matures into a fruit, often called a silicle or silique, and we've got a spiral staircase fruits going up the stalk. And thank you so much for joining us. So there we go. That was our that was our plant families and our foods class.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you all
Thanks,
so much.
Nevaeh.
Thank
And
you.
thank you to Jasmine for being my amazing co-host. I'm really